All right, welcome back, everyone. Another great episode beneath the helmet. Today, we got a chance to sit down with a fellow firefighter and new author. I'm your host, Arjuna George, former fire chief turned coach, podcaster, author, and here to share people's wisdom and stories through this podcast here on Beneath the Helmet. Today, I got author and firefighter Tommy Bolin, and he's also the owner of First Responder Sport LLC. So he's also going to be sharing some of his wisdom through his book, Unseen Battles, and a bit of his story to share with everyone here to give you some advice so you don't necessarily have to struggle in silence.
It's time to ignite your soul and unlock your full potential. Join us on Beneath the Helmet, the podcast exploring firefighters' health and wellness. Hosted by retired fire chief Arjuna George, our podcast is the perfect place to start your journey towards becoming the best version of yourself. So come on, let's join the conversation and find out what sets your soul on fire.
So welcome to the show, Tommy.
Hey, thanks, sir. I appreciate you having me today.
Awesome. So tell our listener a little bit about who Tommy is, a little snapshot into your life.
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Tommy Bolin. I'm a 30-year veteran in the fire service. I still currently serve in Central Ohio as a lieutenant paramedic. I got a wife of 31 years. How I kept her around, I have no idea, honestly. She's a saint. I got 3 boys that are just killing it in life, and I'm super proud of them. And just super excited to be here.
Your children follow in the footsteps of a first responder, public safety?
No, actually, none of them wanted to do the fire service, and I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm not upset with it. I'm okay with it. So,
Same with my kids. Yeah, I thought maybe, but nope. Yeah, I'm okay with that. So,
yep, absolutely. As long as they're happy and know what they love, I don't care what they do. So,
awesome. So tell us a little bit about, kind of walk us through the events that led up to even thinking about writing a book like this, telling your story. There's got to be a lot to contemplate and go through to actually get to the point of putting pen to paper and publishing this amazing book. So how did that all start?
absolutely. So, probably when you came into back, 30 years ago, we just never talked about mental health. When we came in the fire service, you were pretty much told if you can't handle the job, you might want to find another career. If, suck it, you got to suck it up. And it was just a terrible way to deal with it. And over the years, obviously we see a lot of things out there, a lot of trauma. And I'm not even really talking about just the trauma. I'm talking about, the life of service, the sleep deprivation, the insomnia, the chronic stress, the administration betrayal. Sometimes it comes with a lot of this stuff. And around 2017 is when it really started getting really bad for me. I honestly didn't know what was going on. I didn't know why I was feeling the way I was feeling, but I was just miserable. I couldn't shut my brain off. I just had all that stuff, just swirling in my head for years. And around between 2017 and 2019 is when things got really bad. And, back in 2019, I had a suicide attempt. I came home and I was drinking a lot. I was drinking a lot to just self-medicate, to honestly just to sleep and just to cope. And I never drank on duty, but my days off, I got it done. And it was just, obviously we know that that's a terrible way to deal with your stress and your trauma and all that kind of thing, or all that kind of stuff. So I came home from a night of drinking one night. It's in the book, Unseen Battles, and it was around 2:00 in the morning, and I just had enough. I decided that tonight was going to be the night I was going to do this. So I grabbed my gun. I went to my basement. I had the gun to my head, and I was actually praying to God to forgive me and for my family to forgive me for what I'm about to do. And I can tell you, I don't, whatever you guys believe in, I believe there's a higher power out there. In that moment, I think God wasn't done with me. And my college son just happened to be home that weekend. And at 2:00 in the morning, he walked downstairs. And when I heard the door open and I heard him come down the stairs, I laid the gun on my chest and I acted like I was asleep. And he was smart, college kid, and he knew what was going on, even though I tried to hide it. and he asked me if he could take my gun. He took my gun, took the other guns in the house, wouldn't hit him, and came down and talked to me for about 45 minutes till I fell asleep. And in that moment, my son saved my life that night. I should be another statistic, honestly. So fast forward, even from then, and you'll probably understand this, there wasn't a lot of support, but even as close back as 2015 to 19, there really wasn't. We were starting to kind of get into this mental health aspect of the job, but there really wasn't a lot of resources out there. And I had no idea where to turn. My wife, I remember one night coming home also after a day of day drinking and just sitting on the floor in front of her and just, I broke down, bawling my eyes out in front of her, and I was begging her for help, and she wanted to help me, but she didn't know where to turn. There was no support for families or anything like that. She had no idea what to do. I had no idea what to do. I had seen therapists throughout the years. The problem is, they always tell you, hey, call EAP, call EAP. And the problem is they kind of match you with a therapist, but a lot of the therapists I saw, God bless them, I know that their heart was in the right place and they wanted to help, but they weren't really culturally competent in what first responders go through. They weren't really trauma informed. So some of that was actually more detrimental to my recovery than it was helpful. After that incident, after my wife and then the suicide attempt, I still kind of muddled through things, because we're professionals, right? I shouldn't be feeling like this. This is what I do as a living. Suck it up. I'm a man. Let's get through this, soldier on and lock your stuff down. And it really wasn't the one that, the night that got me was actually during the day. My son we were in a golf outing, a firefighter golf outing, and my 17-year-old son happened to be he was DD and dad around that day. I was drinking and, father of the year, right? I was father of the year. And he said something, and I was dealing with a lot of anger back then, and I just really went off on him. And I remember texting him. I was texting him throughout the day, but I was so drunk I don't remember all the stuff I was texting him. And I remember my wife texting me and saying, "Stop texting your son." And when Mama Bear gets involved, you're in trouble. So the next morning, I go to the firehouse and I opened up the text messages. And just the vile things I was saying to him. I never know what's going to hit me. Like I can talk about this. I still get emotional about it sometimes. And I don't apologize because it's real. It's raw. But I looked at the text messages and the stuff that I was saying to him just broke my heart. And in that moment, the only purpose I had in life in that moment was my children. And at that point, I felt like I lost my children. I felt like I lost all purpose in life. My other two kids were in college and they didn't want to come home. They couldn't stand to see what I was doing to my life, and they couldn't stand to see the emotional stuff that I was bringing home all the time. So that morning at the firehouse, I was sitting there and I Googled firefighter mental health. And the first thing that popped up was the COE, the Center of Excellence, the IFF Center of Excellence out in Maryland. Never heard of it. This was 2019. That's how slow things move. It opened up in 2017. First ever heard of it. So I sent that to my wife and I said, what do you think about this place? And she said, you need to go. You need to go do this. And what she wasn't telling me was, you need to go do this because I'm done. I can't do this anymore. I can't continue to do this anymore. She stuck with me. She loved me through the whole thing. But if she would have left me, honestly, I would have never blamed her. I really wouldn't. I gave her every reason to leave me in that moment. So within a week, I asked her, I was on duty. I said, hey, can you make the phone call? Because I didn't want to get interrupted with runs. I didn't want to get emotional at the station. And she said, yeah, I'll make the phone call. So the next morning I got home and she says, hey, I talked to this guy. Will you call him back? I said, yeah. So I give the guy a call back and we go through a couple of formalities. And he said something nobody else ever said to me. He goes, listen, Tommy, you understand that you're not the only one. Like, there's so many other people out there that are going through the same things that you're going through. And in that moment, I never heard that. I never heard anybody say that because I really thought I was going crazy and I felt like nobody would understand what I was going through. And I started getting emotional. So within a week after that phone call, I was on a plane heading to Baltimore, Maryland, driving down to Marlboro, Maryland. And I spent 31 days at the IFS Center of Excellence dealing with a lot of my issues. And the classes were great. taught me why I was doing the things I was doing, gave me a lot of really good, like, they really talked about like even the brain, the things that go in your brain, of how trauma changes the brain, and gave me a lot of different resilient techniques to use and try. And it was really helpful. But I tell you, honestly, the biggest thing I got out of that place was, and we joke about it all the time, was the real therapy started at 5 o'clock in the evening out the fire pit, sometimes surrounded by 20 to 40 of my brothers and sisters around the country in Canada. And just sharing our stories and really understanding in that moment that I wasn't the only one going through this, that there were so many people that were struggling just like me. And that was huge for me. That was huge, because I really honestly thought I was going crazy. I thought I was losing my mind. And just being around my brothers and sisters and talking through all that stuff and knowing I wasn't alone was really big for me. So that first week, we get through all kind of trauma classes. And on Friday, they take everything from me when you get there. It's not only a substance abuse facility, but it's also a mental health facility. And you go through all these kind of trauma classes. And at the end of the week, they put me in the mental health side because they said, my issue really wasn't the drinking. The drinking didn't help, obviously, never helps. But my main issue was my mental health. And I was drinking for all the wrong reasons. I was drinking to self-medicate. I was honestly to sleep, to pass. I mean, I was drinking so much hard liquor just to pass out. And so that Friday, kind of getting to the book thing, that Friday, you get your phone for 1 hour a week. And my first call was to my wife, and it was pretty emotional. It was still all pretty raw. I was still in the blame game. It couldn't be me, right? It was everybody. My life sucked because of everybody else. And it wasn't me, but I was in the blame game. But like, I made my second phone call to a really good friend of mine, Keith, who is part of our peer support team, and he teaches. He actually travels the country and lectures for the IFF. And he said, "Hey, Tommy, how you doing?" I'm like, "Keith, I'm not good." He goes, "What do you mean?" I said, "Man, I'm humiliated. I'm ashamed. I'm embarrassed. I'm like, I don't know what my life's going to look like after this. What am I going to tell people?" And I'll never forget, he said, "Tommy, if you would just come back and be vulnerable, if you would just share your story, because you have no idea how many people you're going to help through your story." And obviously in the moment, I was like, "Hey, thanks, Heath. I really appreciate that. But I'm still pretty messed up, But the crazy thing is, when I got home, I did start opening up and start sharing my story and talking to people. And within a 3-month period, I was the first one from our department to go to the IFF Center of Excellence. And within a 3-month period, 4 other guys went.
Wow.
And it kind of just opened up that door to say, "Hey, listen, it's okay. It's okay. It's kind of some normal things that we go through if you don't deal with it." So in 2021, I started doing all these lectures and stuff. And in 2019, I started doing all these lectures and going around and presenting to fire departments, police departments. I'm in the correction facilities. And we did a video. And in that video, when we released it, my brother-in-law did it for me. It kind of went viral, got picked up by some pretty big websites. And just the response I got from that alone was amazing. The people, it really opened my eyes up, honestly, to the struggles that were going on around us. And, when I first started doing it, the only thing I knew was the fire service. That's just all I knew. I had people reaching out to me from nurses, police officers, corrections officers, everybody who serves on line of trauma. And so kind of going back to the book, several years later, as I started talking, I was like, somebody said, "You should write a book." And I'm like, "Man, I don't know. I'm not, my wife would tell you, "Yeah, I'm barely smart enough from spelling my own name." Right. But here we are. But they were like, "You need to write a book," and when we started talking about this book, I'm like, but I don't want it to just be about me. I don't want to be about my struggles. I want it to be about everybody. I want to be about, everybody who serves on the line of trauma. And so I started all these interviews, all these other people, and that's kind of how the book came out. Just imagine if we could, we got all these little, like, everybody doing their own work, the police, the fire, the military, the corrections facilities. Just imagine we get everybody at the table, everybody at once, to come up with real, honest solutions on how we're going to tackle this. Because, as well as I do, we see the numbers. We're losing more firefighters and police officers, and the military thing's crazy to suicide than line of duty deaths combined. It's not weakness. This is a system and a mindset that's broken. And until we change this culture, we're going to continue to see these numbers, right?
I'm curious, in today's fire service, a new recruit joining, do you see a difference in culture, the message that they're hearing than when you and I joined? Or is it
I
still the
think
same?
I think we're starting to get better about it. I think we have more awareness about it, but I also think it depends on the department. I think it depends on the department and the leadership. I've been to departments where like the leadership is not on board with all the mental health stuff. I get called outside to talk to people because the leadership don't want to take care of it. So I think it all depends on the department, but I do see a change in awareness. But the sad thing is, I don't know how it is there in Canada, but we and here in Ohio, mental health is not part of the curriculum for fire, paramedic schools and things like that. And I've been looking into how do we change that? How do we change that to get these into the schools? And I tell you, I don't know if you've ever dealt with the government, but through the fire service and all the hours and stuff that they do for fire school and medic school, it all has to be changed through the Ohio Revised Code, which is legislation. And trying to get anything passed through government, it just moves so slow. So
Yeah.
we do have departments that see the importance in it, and we do have a lot of the academies that do see the importance in it, and they'll call me and have me come out and lecture. Some of the big cities are like Columbus, Ohio. Here, they do a great job at it. They got their own mental health facility just dedicated for that at the department, and they send people to the academy. They talk to these new recruits, these new kids. They even bring the families in and talk to the families, which I think is so important too, because you know as well as I do, this wasn't just a me issue, this was a family issue. And it's so important to bring the family in on this stuff too. So I think it's getting better, but I think we got a long way to go.
So I'm assuming the stories the powerful stories that you shared, especially about your sons, how did you rebuild that relationship with your family to get to a point where you are today?
You know, it took time. It took time. It took time and it took a lot of healing. It wasn't, people need to be done hurting before they're ready. You can lead a horse to water like we talked about. You can't make them drink, and people just have to be done hurting. And I finally got to that point where I was just done. I was done with the way my life was going, and I knew I had to make a change. And I started really diving deep into the whole resiliency part of it, and I really wanted to learn like about the brain, and because we all have different experiences, different human experiences, different upbringings, different chemicals run around our brains that we all feel differently. And so I really want to know a lot about that. And this whole thing about like PTSD or PTSI, it's been around for years, centuries. It's been around forever. We've called it so many different things, but it's all the same thing. It's everybody starts on the line of trauma and the things we see and everything else that comes involved with it. So I really want to learn about that and how I can just live a more resilient life. And the healing kind of came just from time and being intentional on how I live my day now. Every morning when I get up, I got my own routine that I do and just setting my mind right every day and just refusing to go back to that person I was in 2019. Now, the thing is, when I came out of Maryland, I wasn't fixed. We still deal with all that stuff, but I learned the tools that I needed there to live a more resilient life. And like I said, it's just actually being intentional on how you live how I live my life nowadays. And I can tell you right now, my marriage is I almost lost my marriage, almost lost my life, almost lost my kids, and my marriage is best spent in 31 years, and my relationship with my kids is awesome. And it's just you got to make that choice. You got to be your own advocate, and nobody's going to do it for you. So
Beautiful, beautiful. So you talked about the Center of Excellence and the 5 o'clock campfire.
yeah.
What education kind of rose to the top for you? It was like, wow, you talked about the brain a little bit. Was there a tool or a modality or a technique that they taught you that really resonated with you and something you still do today?
Yeah, and one thing that I didn't do there, which I did after, which I'll talk about here in a minute, but it was a lot of just the grounding techniques, just the living in the moment. My problem was, when you're anxious, you're thinking about things that hadn't even happened yet, and like you catastrophize everything, and that's what I was doing. And then the depression was coming from when I was drinking a lot and a lot of the bad things I was doing. It was the guilt that I was carrying. So really just trying to ground myself in the moment and learn to live in the moment was huge for me. I used to let people run my life, honestly. I'm not gonna lie to you. Um, I was a people pleaser. I always wanted to please everybody. And I was never happy with myself. And until I got to the point to where I finally said, and you understand what I'm saying here, I don't care what people think about me anymore. And don't get me wrong, I care about people. I want people to live their most happy and most fulfilling lives. But when I got to the point in my life, and the center helped me with a lot of this, when I got to the point in my life where I actually started loving myself, um, and loving my own skin, it was very freeing for me, because now I don't worry about what people think of me, or I don't make those same mistakes that I made in the past. So the guilt's not as bad. I still carry a lot of that guilt that I did, but a lot of that has gotten a lot better. But it's more of just that grounding yourself in the moment, really taking that time to clear your mind. I know a lot of people like, I try, and it's hard, but you can do it. It takes practice, right? It takes practice. Um, I use a lot of breathing techniques that help me. I mean, it's been proven, the snipers use it before they take shots, just to calm their heart, calm their mind. So it's actually been proven through studies that this stuff works. You might think it's hippie, that's fine, but it works for me. It worked for me.
Yeah, I don't
But
think
I
at
can
all.
say, but I can tell you one thing that's really helped me. So several years ago, when I would speak, and even like when I do these podcasts, I never know what's going to hit me. Sometimes I still get emotional, but I would talk about that moment with my son and the golf outing, and on stage I would start to get really emotional. And I went to there's a place here in Ohio called Ohio Assist that's for all first responders. It's a 3-day, really intense seminar. They wanted me to come volunteer for it, but you have to sit at the table before you do it. So I sat at the table, I shared a lot of my stuff, and they asked me, they said, "Hey, do you want to do this thing called EMDR?" And I'm like, yeah, I do. So we sat there, and she said, "Is there anything that really kind of comes to mind that are still bothering?" I'm like, "Yeah, that thing with my son." And I'll tell you, it was crazy. So I know it doesn't work on everybody, but it was a game changer for me. And when she started asking me the questions about it, as soon as she started asking me the questions, I started talking, the floodgates open. I started bawling my eyes out. It was just this whole emotional release. We went through this like 5 times. She would stop. She'd ask me some other questions. At the end of it, she said, "Tommy, I want you to stop and think about how you feel right now." And at the end of it, I was like, "Man, I feel this peace. I just got this peace now." And it kind of takes that whole memory that's always swirling in your brain and kind of puts it in a different area of your brain. Don't ask me the science behind it, because I can't tell you.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like reframing everything in your brain. And for me, it helped me a lot. And like I can usually talk about it now without getting, very emotional and very choked up. But here's the thing that people don't understand too. Because I came out of Maryland with the tools, I still had to use those tools. I still had to continue to do that daily, and I still continue to do that daily to be able to live a better life. So it's you still got to do the work. I can't do it for you. You can't do it for them. We still have to do the work. So
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. EMDR, great tool. Grounding. I don't know. A couple of years ago, nobody talked about grounding in our circles, anyways. Like grounding
uh,
was like what, like a ground ladder, or what are you talking about?
yeah,
Nobody had a clue what grounding was, right? So
yeah,
it's nice to see that becoming a word that people are using on a regular basis, right?
yeah,
Within our circles, right? So
yeah, absolutely.
you talk a lot about, trauma in your book, but you also mentioned administrative betrayal and kind of moral injury. Maybe share with the listener right now kind of your take on moral injury or administrative betrayal and how powerful that is to our mental health.
Yeah, I talk to a lot of people who don't feel very supported by their administration. And, when they're going through a lot, I hate to say it, but a lot of these small departments, especially here in Ohio, there's this whole thing called the good old boy system. And if you're not in that crowd, you're just not one of the guys, they just kind of discard you. I had one of those things happen to me years ago. I don't want to I talk about it a little bit in the book. I don't use any names or like that, but it was just more of an example. And, I think it's the thing that when you try to do the right thing, when you're trying to be a good officer, a good firefighter, you're trying to do the right thing, but no matter what you do, they find something to just hammer on you. And, the fire, and I had that happen to me a while back, several years ago, with a person that, that I was under. And, I was going through a lot of my struggles. And the one place that I really kind of found refuge was the firehouse, being around my brothers and hanging out with them. And I felt more comfortable back in, which is sad, but I felt more comfortable there than I did at home because I was around people who went through a lot of the same stuff. And when I lost that administrative part of it, when it became a very toxic environment, for me and for the other guys I was working with, that's when things really took. I mean, I was back around 2019, but things really started turning and going sideways for me. And I felt like I lost that. And then it was just a horrible, horrible thing. And, you know, a lot of this stuff has to come from the top down. We got to start at the beginning. We got to get these kids when they're young. We got to give them resources, talk about the job, talk about things they might see, talk about we need to talk to the families about, hey, just maybe these changes in behavior we need to look out for. Uh, But it's got to start from the top down. They got to be 100% in on this stuff. Like I said, we're still seeing the numbers. And when I talk about this, I don't know if I just mentioned this, but not just the suicides, but it's also the thousands upon thousands of our brothers and sisters who are struggling every day with alcohol or drugs or failed marriages or isolation. Isolation is just, we all know isolation is not your friend. And we need to start at the top down to really start to focus on this stuff and be supportive of our people instead of just giving lip service, honestly.
Yeah, it's pretty powerful. Like in my point of view, I think moral injury, administrative betrayal might be even more viral, if you want to say,
Yeah.
through a lot of our organizations than trauma. Because we do
Yeah.
have some tools for trauma, but we're unaware of the damage that betrayal is causing on our nervous systems and
Mhm.
our mental health, right? So it's one of those things I think we need
Absolutely.
to talk about more and more for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's a combination of, like, with me, it was 25 years of not just trauma. It was the trauma combined with the insomnia and sleep deprivation, combined with the stress that goes on. And, the top three killers of firefighters is cancer, heart disease, and suicide. And just having stress and sleep deprivation alone leads to higher chances. And, the chronic stress leads to higher chances of cancer, heart disease, and suicide. I mean, don't get me wrong. We get into some nasty stuff with those chemicals and everything like that, but I truly don't believe that's the main cause. I think it's, everything else that comes with it.
Yeah, we've done a pretty good job of PPE and
Yeah,
decon and everything like that. There should be a decline in that, not a rise, right?
right. Yeah.
So you talk in your book a little bit about, fighting in silos to make our world a little better place for mental health arena.
Mhm.
Who would be in those silos that we want to bring into one silo? What agencies, what groups, what people?
I think everybody, we see this with everybody who, like I said a little bit ago, that serves on the line of trauma with the fire, the police, the military, I mean, I don't know if you ever looked at the stats on the corrections officers. I mean, their suicide rate is crazy. Um, it's everybody. I think we need to bring everybody together instead of just working individually. It would be awesome to have everybody at the table to say, listen, how are we going to tackle this? How are we gonna really move the needle on this? And I think we need to bring everybody together to actually come up with real solutions. It takes a tribe, right? It takes a tribe and a family. And I think we need to bring everybody together because this is what's killing us. I had a, so I used to, when I do some of my presentations, I had a graph up on the screen. I got to give credit to Jeff Dill from Firefighter Behavioral Health Alliance, and but he keeps track now of suicides versus a lot of the deaths. And I had this chart up on the board one day, and we were seeing the statistics, and at one point, the suicide started outpacing the line of duty desk, and I had somebody say, "Hey, Tommy, why do you think there's such an uptick in suicides?" And I'm like, "I don't think there is." I said, "I think we're just tracking them now. I think it's been this way for a very, very long time. It's just we haven't had raw data to show, to show the progression." And I think if you really go back, because I mean, there's been a lot of suicides that people. It's not mandatory reporting. It's still not mandatory reporting, and a lot of people, because of the embarrassment, have had people that have committed suicide, and they just don't want to say it's suicide because they don't want the family don't want to say that or whatever. And I get that. I understand that. It's horrible. I've lost, 5 of my brothers to suicide. Several of them one of them was my first lieutenant. I've known a military guy that killed himself. And we really need to keep track of this stuff to really show, um, honestly, the epidemic that's going on. And I think it's worse than what we really know.
Yeah, my last podcast interview was talking exactly about this exact same thing. So it's a hot
Mhm.
topic and a topic that we need to talk about more and more for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, kind of on that, also in your book, you talk about putting band-aids on bullet holes. What does that mean?
Yeah. So, you know, we just want to feel good, right? I mean, when we're in that moment, we're in that hole, that dark place, whatever you want to call it. We just want to feel good. So, one of my band-aids is I was drinking a lot. I was drinking a lot to feel good, to numb. But we all know that um, that doesn't help. It only adds to the issues. You know, I joined an MMA gym. I mean, back when I was,
Yep.
it was good for me. Don't be wrong. It was 47 years old, and I joined an MMA gym and started to learn how to fight because I felt so weak. I felt ashamed. And I felt so weak because of my mental health. I had to prove to people that I wasn't weak. So I joined an MMA gym, and then a year and a half later, I decided, hey, I need to jump in a ring and fight in this whole thing called the Guns and Hoses that we have here. It's police versus fire. And, that wasn't, I was doing that to prove a point that I wasn't weak. I was struggling, but I wasn't a weak person. And, so I was fighting a lot. And that was more of just putting a Band-Aid on the bullet hole. I wasn't dealing with the real root issues of my problems. And a lot of people turn to drugs or I mean, hey, say like porn and stuff like that, just the infidelity and stuff, just to feel good, just to feel wanted and needed. And honestly, that's what I was doing. I was doing all of that, not the porn and the things like that, but it's just that whole thing. We just want to feel good. We just want something to mask the pain in that moment. And yeah, that's what I mean by band-aids on bullet holes. We just weren't taking care of we weren't taking care of the root causes.
Mhm. So what would be your message to the person who keeps saying, enough with the PTSD, doc, enough with this? We keep hearing it over and over again. Maybe it's in their world, maybe it's not. What would you say to that person who's saying that message? Enough with the PTSD. We keep hearing it. Every conference I go to is PTSD this, PTSD that. What would you say to that person?
And I hear it. I still hear it, and I'm okay with that's fine. And I talk about this when I go out and I do my presentations and I tell people, I'm like, hey, listen, and I've had people come up to me like, hey, Tommy, man, I love what you're doing, but I just don't understand it. I don't understand what you're going through. And my message to them is just because you don't understand it doesn't make it any less real. Let me tell you something. It was real to me because I lived it, and I can tell you it is real. People, when they break their leg, we go to the doctor. People have diabetes, they take insulin. I got hypertension from my uncontrolled, I got my uncontrolled stress led to hypertension, which led to kidney failure. So I'm in stage 1 kidney failure now because of my chronic stress that I dealt with for years. So my thing is if you don't understand it, that's fine, but don't discard it because you just don't understand it, because I can tell you it's real. There are people out there that go through this every day, and there's more people that go through this than probably the people that don't understand it, honestly. And it's okay not to understand it. That's fine. But just like my mom said, if you have nothing nice to say, just don't say nothing at all. What's that hurt? It costs you nothing. You might save somebody's life just by not saying anything. I get so frustrated. I write in my book too about this, but um, I got stuck on this word weakness for a while. I don't know why, but this whole word weakness. And I actually started kind of doing some research on it. And do you know I think we confuse our line of work with this word called meekness. I'm sure you've heard of the word meekness.
Yes. Yep.
So the Greek definition of meekness is actually power under control. And if you can think of a war horse that is trained for battle, trained to perform in high stress situations, but having so much power that if you unleash it, it will destroy anything in its place. I really believe that's who we are. We go through weak moments in our lives, and that's okay. It's called being a human being. We're not Superman or Superwomen. We still are human beings with normal human emotions, and it's okay. Just because we have these weak moments in our lives doesn't make us weak people. So I tell people all the time, I'm like, don't mistake my meekness for weakness, because I'm not weak. We are not weak. We're battle tested. We've had the worst that humanity has to throw on us, and we still move forward and we still soldier on. That is not weakness. That's power.
Yeah, I love that. That's a great perspective.
Mhm.
Where did you come across that? Was that through your writing the book? Was that where that kind of got highlighted, or?
Honestly, I heard that
I like
years
that.
ago
Yeah.
in church.
Oh,
I
that's
heard
a good
somebody
one.
use that analogy in church,
Yeah.
and it came back up again. Um, and I started looking into it. I'm like, man, that's so powerful. That's who we are. You know,
Mhm.
I use this other analogy too, if you want to hear it real quick. But
Sure.
so when I go out and present, I talk to people. I'm sure you've heard the story about the two wolves, right? The old Cherokee chief talking to his grandson about the
Oh
two
yeah.
wolves that
Yeah.
live inside of us.
Yeah.
And I started incorporating it in my lecture because it took on a whole new meaning for me. Because in the Cherokee chief, he says to his grandson, he says, "Hey, grandson, there's two wolves that live inside of us. There's one that's full of darkness and hate and envy, and he goes, and there's the other one that's good and full of joy and wanting to help and happiness." And he said, "Grandfather, which one wins?" And he says, "The one you feed." And when I read that again years later, I was like, man, that is so true, because we cannot live a happy and fulfilling life if we're feeding our demons. And that's exactly what I was doing. I was feeding my demons. I was, the whole misery loves company. I was so miserable that I was surrounding myself with people who were in the same place, and we were feeding off each other. And it's just, I had to learn, and I had to separate myself from people. Doesn't mean I don't love them. I'll be there for them if they need me, but I had to separate myself from that negativity and start surrounding myself with more positive people in my life and more supportive people. And when you do that, you will see a huge change in your life. Things just look different. The perspective that you look at things are just so much different. And at this point, I don't let things bother me like I used to. I let it go, because the only person that's like you can control is you, right? That's it.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can't control how people treat you or how they talk about you. You can only control you. So,
When you realize that, how freeing is that as a person, right? How
oh
freeing is
man,
that
it's
to be able to,
crazy.
yeah,
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 yeah.
yeah,
It's so simple, but it's so hard to get there, right?
yeah. I love that. That's cool. So you've talked a lot about, having emotional reactions to a lot of the events and storytelling and stuff like that. Emotional resilience is a pretty key factor that I think first responders maybe are not maybe up to speed as other tactics that we have.
Mhm.
How would you define emotional resilience, and what is lacking and something we should look at a little deeper?
I think it's one of those things you got to do a mental check every once in a while. You just got to really sit down and do a mental check on how you're doing. Really take an inventory of the things that are going on in your life, and we just don't do that. We let things go for so long, and we stuff this thing down. Whatever analogy you want to use, you stuff it in the backpack, or you stuff it in the 5-gallon bucket, or you put it on a shelf or whatever, until eventually that shelf, you know, collapses on your head, or that backpack is full. And I think we need to really take time every once in a while just to do a mental check-in on, hey, what's really driving my life right now? What's really going on in my head? And honestly, I'm not gonna lie to you. I think everybody in these professions should have a mental health professional on speed dial. There's no shame in it. I see one. There's nothing wrong with it. sometimes all you need to do is just go vent to somebody and just, get that stuff out. And that's really all you need. If you do it early enough in your career, I think that's really all you need is just to get that stuff, because you just want to get it out and talk to somebody that understands and that will listen and understand and really kind of validate your feelings, honestly. Because back then I felt like, um, I felt like I was very weak. I felt like I was just a weak individual, mentally weak. And I let that stuff compound for so many years. And, it's something that you have to be your own advocate, and you got to go out and you really need to. Now I will tell you, you got to be careful. You got to talk to people who you trust, a mental health therapist who can't say anything, or find a peer support person or a senior guy that you trust, because let's be honest, not everybody has your best interest in mind, right? And so I say find somebody you trust, and if you ever want to bounce something off somebody, just be open. Be open and vulnerable. Vulnerability is not weakness. Vulnerability is one of the most courageous things you can do in your life. And honestly, when I became vulnerable is when the real change in my life happened.
Love that. Yeah, I always call vulnerability as a superpower. If you can be vulnerable with other people around you, it's a superpower. Yeah. It's
Absolutely.
a superpower, buddy. You got to
Yeah, absolutely. We all got it in us. We just got to find it. So
yeah. So how do you physically, how do you do that? Check in with yourself each day. Is it like a checklist you have? Is it in your mind? Is it a meditation? How do you actually do that?
So every morning I get up, I usually get up for my wife, and I'll go out and I'll sit and I'll have me some coffee, and I'll just do a little meditation. I'll do a little reading, and just kind of check in with myself and just kind of see what's on my mind that day. But honestly, it's just gotten to be such a routine for me that I'm able to just start each day with just a clean slate, just each day I can get out there and I can just kind of clear my mind. If I got things I'm thinking about, I can kind of work through them. And sometimes for me, I learned this in the center. I did a lot of journaling back then too, and just putting words to paper, and getting that stuff out of your mind on paper, was very powerful for me. And when I find myself, like I said, I'm not fixed. I still deal with depression. I still deal with anxiety. I just learned now how to deal with it, and how to deal with it in more healthy and productive ways. And sometimes I'll just get the journal out and I'll just start writing. And if things are in there, they'll come out on paper. It'll come out. And that's just been very helpful for me. Just getting up in the morning and having that normal routine, and trying to get into the gym, trying to get out and walk, and do things like that. Just be outside, get that sun, that vitamin D that we that kind of sucks here in the wintertime in Ohio, because we get those, dark gray days in the wintertime. Right now it's awesome because we got the summertime, but just getting out and being in nature a little bit and just clearing your mind and just freeing your mind up.
When you're doing your journaling, is that some of the stuff that created this book? Or is that just
No,
no? Yeah.
no, that was just stuff. I mean, yeah, there's probably stuff in there that's in the book, just things I've written, but that was stuff I dealt with back in 2019 when I was in the center, because I journaled every day while I was there, and they really encouraged that. But yeah, a lot of stories and stuff in there that I was dealing with was in my book from back then. But now it's just, if I get stressed out about something, I'll just get it out and start just jotting words down on paper and just try to get it out and try to understand why I'm thinking this way and stop catastrophizing things. We just got to stop. The thing is, like, when I went to Maryland, and you'll understand this too, being in the fire service, I went to the chief before I went to Maryland. I said, "Hey, do you care if I go talk to my guys before I leave? Because as well as I do, if I don't tell them why I'm going to be off for 30 days plus, they're going to make up their own mind, right? They're going to, Tommy did something crazy or stupid, and they're going to, all of a sudden, all these rumors start going. So in my mind that day, when I went down to talk to them, I'm thinking, man, these guys are going to think I'm weak. They're going to think I'm less than a man. And I went down, I called them at roll call, and I said, "Hey, fellas," there were 6 of us. And I said, "Hey, fellas," I said, "I'm struggling really bad." I said, "My drinking's out of control, my anxiety and my depression's out of control." And they had no idea, because we hide it well. We are masters of hiding our emotions. And they were honestly, they were blown away. They couldn't believe that I was struggling. And something amazing happened in that moment. One of the guys looked at me and said, "Hey, Lou, we love you, and we need you back here. Go get the help you need and get back to us." He came up and hugged me. The other 4 guys came up and hugged me. And in that moment, I wasn't their brother. I was I wasn't their lieutenant. I was their fellow brother who was struggling, and they knew it, and they had my back. And I also believe that 99% of these conversations, that's how it would go. It's just we get it in our minds, of how things are going to go, and 99% of the time they never go that way, you know? So that was just a really amazing moment for me to know that I had the support. When I got back, I had so much support. I had so many people that would come up to me and say, "Hey, I'm proud of you for going and doing that and for taking care of it." Like I said, 4 other guys came up to me, and within a 3-month period, they were in Maryland, getting help. So
Would you say that your feelings or your understanding or just how you feel about the brotherhood, sisterhood is more powerful now? Or did you experience some lack of brotherhood, sisterhood going through any of this? It sounds like a very positive experience, but was there any
yeah,
challenges there?
I mean, it's been very positive. Um, I'd say when I was going through my issues, I had some I had some questions. There were a lot of people that they didn't care. They didn't care. I had one of my officers one time tell me, "I'm here to run a business. I'm not here for make you happy or something like that." And so I think it's gotten a lot. I can tell you our department has gotten a lot better. We got a good administration that really um, puts a lot of work into the mental health aspect of it. But yeah, when I was going through a lot of my issues, I had some people that really just didn't care, and it was more of a business to them. It wasn't a brotherhood. And I feel like, you know, we need to get back to that the brotherhood and the sisterhood. If we really care about each other, we need to really not just give lip service. We need to care about them, not just on the fires and not just on the medic runs or things like that, but actually in the house and in the home and making sure everybody's mentally fit to do this job. I mean, it's a huge part of the job that if you're more mentally fit, you're going to be a better firefighter. You're going to be a better servant to the community. You're going to be a better husband. You're going to be a better father, a better friend. So I think we're getting a lot better on how we're really doing this stuff now.
What boggles my mind is when you take care of everyone's wellness, the mental health, every aspect of it, less grievances, less turmoil, less drama, less headaches for the leadership,
Less time off.
less time off. There's so many
And
bonuses, right?
there's so many bonuses. Yeah.
So what would be your key message to a chief officer listening right now on how they can maybe do, just a 1% better job of taking care of we can say, take care of your crews. That's an easy word to say, but how do you do that? How do you do that?
Yeah. The thing is, and I talk about this a little bit in my book, that leadership comes with a lot of responsibility, right? We have a lot of bosses out there, bosses that bark orders, bosses that demand. Um, we need to have more leaders, people who really get to know their people, not just on a professional level, but on a personal level. We need to watch out for those changes of behavior. I mean, I could tell you when I came out and I started doing all this stuff, I'm more in tune with my crew now. I know, like, if I have a guy come in and he's having a really bad day, and most of the times if somebody messes up at the firehouse or something like that, or they do something, it's probably because they got something going on in their personal life, right? Um, but I'm more in tune with my guys now. And I've had guys that have come in and I could just tell, like, they're just not acting right that day. Something is just off. They might just be having a bad day. But if that guy comes in or that gal comes in 2, 3 shifts in a row and they just had a change of behavior, they're just not acting right. I'll approach them now. I'll go up and say, "Hey, I just noticed that just seem like you're having a bad day. Is everything okay?" And the thing is, people want to talk. They do, but they don't want to be the first one to initiate it. And I've had guys come in and I've pulled them, and I always pull them off. And I never call them in my office. I always either out on the bay floor or somewhere in the day room alone. And I'll ask them, "Are they okay? Is everything okay?" And I've had guys just break down in front of me like, "No, man, no, things are not okay. Things are bad." And we'll sit there and talk. And it's amazing how much people will open up to you but you got to be genuine and you got to care. You can't just, like I said, you can't just tell them that you care. You got to show it with your actions and the things you do every day. And, I've had so many guys, I've just witnessed that, not just at my department, but at other departments that I'm friends with, that I'll approach them and say, and then, man, they'll just spill their guts on you. And sometimes that's all they need. They just need somebody that understands and just listen And, I've been able to get them to the right resources and try to help them through that struggle. And, we just need to be more in tune with our people.
Couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more. Do you ever see that backfiring where you approach somebody and they're actually put off by your questioning?
Uh, no, not really.
Good.
Now I can tell you, I have talked to I talk to people like we get a lot of younger guys, right? We got a lot of younger guys in, and I tell them, I'm like, when we talk to them at the beginning and stuff, or when one of our peer sport guy talks to them, I'll talk to my guys. I'm like, hey, listen, if you see that change in behavior, don't be afraid to say something, but don't maybe not go to that guy. Cause if you're a 1 year in the service and you go to a 25-year veteran and you go, hey, listen, I know you're having a bad day. He's probably going to tell you to go get bent. Right.
That's
But,
not gonna end well. Yeah.
right. But we have things in place now to where, hey, listen, he could come to me anonymously and say, hey, listen, Tommy, I know that so-and-so is having something's just not right. Something's off. And then I will just go and I'll just say, hey, listen, is everything okay? And usually if it's on that same level, I think like, no, I'm fine, man. I'm just, I just didn't sleep last night. Baby was up all night. And like I said, it's got to be a really bad change in behavior before I go talk to them. Or it's got to be like a 3 or 4 or 5 shit progression to where I could just see something's not right. And then I'll go and talk to them. And honestly, I've had really good responses. Just by going and asking. And I can tell you, trying to think back, but I've never really had a bad response. And my thing is if you, like I've asked people like, hey, have you considered committing suicide? And you're not going to make them more suicidal by asking them if they're suicidal. Right. So, and I've had people tell me, yes, I've been thinking about it. I've been struggling really bad. And I've really had these thoughts about taking my life. And I've had some really good responses with it. I'm prepared for that. If somebody tells me to go get bent, that's fine. That's okay. But you know what? At least they know I care. At least they know that I care and I have their best interest in mind. So
I think that's what probably holds a lot of people back is that scared kind of fear of somebody going, who are you talking to? Who do you think you are? Kind of thing, right? So yeah, I think that's what holds a lot of people back. But
it's all about how you approach it too. You don't just go to somebody and say, hey, are you thinking about killing yourself? No, you go to, hey man, you don't okay. I just noticed, man, you just look like you're bummed out today. Is everything okay? And most times they'll tell you, yeah, no, I'm good, man. Baby was up last night. I got 2 hours of sleep. Now I'm in here. I'm fine. Cool, man. You need anything, let me know.
yeah. And I think the secret sauce to that is knowing your people before that happens. So you know the difference, you can see the difference, and you have that trust built, right? If you just go up to them as a leader that really doesn't care, they can read right through that, right? So yeah, I like that. So tell me, what's a question I haven't asked you yet that you'd love to share with the world?
Man, I think we've covered quite a bit. The only thing I want to tell people is honestly, just don't ever feel like you're alone. I get that so much. It's crazy to me when I go out and I do these presentations, and I can tell you the stigma is still there. It's still strong. And I'll do these presentations and I'll ask at the end, I'm like, hey, anybody got any comments or questions they want to ask? And I'll get a couple, just really nothing crazy questions. But inevitably, when I walk off that stage, I've had people hit me up. I've had people follow me in my car because they don't want their administration or anybody seeing them talking to me. And so that tells me the stigma is still very strong in this profession. And I can tell people that if you would just open up and be vulnerable, you would be surprised at how many other people will probably open up to you too, who are struggling as well. And I've seen it. I'm living proof because I've seen it time and time and time again. And you're not alone. You're not alone. You're not the only one going through this. And there are people out there who do understand and who really care about you and will help.
Love that full circle. That was the story you started with you're not alone.
Yeah.
And
Right.
that's how we wrap it up. Yeah, I love it.
Absolutely.
What's some of the people don't know about Tommy to wrap it up?
Oh man. I don't know. I'm pretty much an open book, honestly. Yeah. I tell everybody like, hey, when I do these podcasts, like what's off the table? I'm nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing's, you ask me whatever you want, and I'm pretty open. I think everybody knows me and they know my heart. And I've always had a servant heart. That's why I did this job. And I just love, honestly, to be that servant, just help people. I love helping the community. I love helping the people out there, and I love helping my own brothers and sisters. And and there's no shame in it. It's not hard to be a nice person, right?
It's actually
It costs
very
you
easy.
nothing.
Very
It
easy.
costs you
Yeah.
nothing. So
It's probably harder to be a jerk.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Beautiful. So how can people find out more about you and maybe how they can get your book?
Yeah. So if you go on Amazon, it's under Tommy Bolin, and it's right here. It's the price of trauma, or sorry, the price of duty, a life of trauma and sacrifice. I think it's there we go. And if you go on Amazon, you can get off of there. I have a Facebook page now called Tommy Bull, or sorry, it's called Unseen Battles by Tommy Bolin. They can get on there. They can reach me on LinkedIn. They can go to my website, which is First Responder Support LLC.com. I've got my video on there from 2021, which tells a lot about my story. And they can reach out to me there. And Instagram, I'm on Instagram too. So
The final message. I know you wrapped it up with, you're not alone. Is there one key message you want somebody to walk away with today? Besides,
I mean, that's really the biggest one,
Awesome.
Just understanding that we're all in this together. It's not a competition. we're all in this together, and don't ever feel like you can't reach out, and not, like I say it again, vulnerability is not weakness. It's one of the most courageous things you can do in your life, and it can be very freeing, but you got to be your own advocate. I can help you. I can walk with you. I can give you the resources. But you got to be your own advocate, and you got to do the work yourself. And there is light at the end of the tunnel. If you do the work and you set your mind to it and be intentional on how you live every day, you can do it. I guarantee it.
Wonderful. Well, thank you very much, Tommy, for sharing your story, putting your book out into the world.
Yeah.
All the
Thank you for having
presentations,
me. I appreciate it.
podcasts. Yeah, it's powerful to hear these stories, and it's also, hopefully going to change somebody's life just by listening to a 1 hour episode.
Yeah.
So
I hope. And like I said, it's not about me. I say this all the time. If it changes one life, it was worth it to me. And I know it's helped quite a few people, because I have a lot of people reach out to me. So
yeah, awesome. Well, everyone listening right now, hope you enjoyed this awesome episode with Tommy. Make sure to check out his book. Very powerful stories, very powerful kind of transition from challenging times to where he is today. So very inspiring. Thank you, Tommy, for sharing that. And until next time.
I appreciate that. Yeah.
Thank you for tuning in to Beneath the Helmet. We hope that this podcast has provided you with valuable insights into the world of firefighters' health and wellness. Remember, caring for your physical, mental, and spiritual well-being is crucial to achieving optimal performance. Join us next time on Beneath the Helmet for more inspiring conversations. Until then, stay well.